Welcome to the Low-Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome to the Low Carb MD podcast. This is a fun one. We're having a spontaneous moment here because Tro had stuff going on and he couldn't make it, and our guest got tied up with an emergency. So I have two really good, smart guys here, and so we'll just do it. This is for our Patreon supporters who are here, and if you have questions for us or want to hear people's stories, I think this is a great opportunity. Two heroes of mine. These are great guys that we have. So let's have Vic go first. Vic, tell people a little bit about your story and how your life's changed over the last couple of years with low carb and keto and all that kind of good stuff. And first of all, happy Veterans Day to everyone. We're recording this on Veterans Day, and thank you for your service and for standing up for our rights and allowing us to talk about crazy stuff. So Vic, welcome, man. So good to have you.
Yeah, it's an unexpected appearance, and great to be with you guys. And listen, it's life is great, life is good. Low carb keto lifestyle. Quick introduction for those who don't know. Yeah, for sure, somebody who's battled obesity all his life, and had the good fortune of coming across this wonderful community and getting all the help to switch my metabolic health around. Since the age of 25, so I'm allowed saying I'm 60 years old now, so that's quite a few years, right? So was on hypertensive medication since the age of 25, gradually worked myself up to getting myself into a hell of a lot more trouble with having sleep apnea and GERD, and wasn't in a very good place on the overall health spectrum. And so many years of failed attempts of losing weight, following the old dogmatic advice that we got of eat less and move more, which never worked. Shouldn't say, I mean, if I can rephrase it, it worked, okay? Because all diets do work. We always do take off the weight, but how do we keep it off is the golden key, which we never had. So several times yo-yo dieted throughout my life, losing good amounts of weight, but it was very short-lived. I mean, within a couple of months, it would all be back, because you're just starving and you're hungry, and you'd never change your eating habits. You were just basically on a calorie counting, low-fat, restrictive diet. Oddly enough, they call keto and low-carb restrictive, and as far as I'm concerned, it was all the other methods that were restrictive and non-sustainable. So 5 years ago, I embarked. I'll be starting year 6 in January. 5 years ago, embarked on this lifestyle when I had gotten to 300 pounds, and had the good fortune of crossing paths with Tro to take me to the next level, and haven't looked back since, and learned how to make it a lifestyle and not a diet. And it's so sustainable. Reversed all my metabolic unwellness. As we speak, at the age of 60, I am med-free, do not take any type of medication. CPAP therapy no longer needed, no more GERD, and it's been life-changing, and it's who I've become. It's a good quality of life. It's a great quality of life, and there's no looking back. And in a short, without rambling too long, that's a short introduction.
Yeah, and I'm so glad to have both of you on, because both of you have really made these life changes, and you've experienced benefits, and it's amazing to me, that I see you guys, like all of us, get attacked on social media and things like that. And it's amazing because what you did worked, and you're trying to help other people. And Chris, I would love for people who don't know you yet, you've been a huge supporter. You've done so much behind the scenes for us, and your story is amazing. Like, on Life's Best Medicine, if no one's listened to that yet, we're going to do a follow-up on that. but he's committed to it. Now he's really committed because we just talked about it. But Chris, tell people your story and you know, what you like, your whole story, man. I remember seeing you on social media go, man, this guy's awesome. He's like, when you're battling cancer and going through all your stuff and all your life struggles and everything. So yeah, to share people your story who don't know you.
Well, yeah, I'm 58 years old. I sort of struggled with weight gain and loss over the years, on and off for decades. By the time I hit about age 51, I weighed 278 pounds. And it was in January of 2018 that I found a book by Gary Taubes, Why We Get Fat. And it really was the catalyst that sort of changed my life in a number of ways, because I not only sustainably found a way to, through low carb eating, to lose 80 pounds and keep it off. I'm now going on 5 years at a healthy weight or healthy body fat. But it's also just figuring out how to change that one aspect of my life, sort of set off a chain of events that has spilled over into other areas of my life. And you know, I don't see that cascade of change or that ripple effect slowing down. In fact, it's been speeding up lately, where it's just consuming all aspects of my life, and I'm learning that, you know, it's never too late to change, to improve, to find new ways of you know, getting fitter, getting healthier, forming better relationships with people. It's just endless. Once you feel like you have that power, there's really nothing. I feel like there's nothing that can stop me. So just you know, from weighing 278 pounds, say 7 years ago, to now, weight isn't even a concern of mine any longer. And I just ran my first half marathon last month. I just committed to a longer distance race. Going to run a marathon in the spring. I lift weights. I'm stronger than I've ever been. I've got things going on in other areas of my life that I never dreamed about. So, and part of that is through the community of people, including you, Brian, and Vic, and a list of people that's too long for me to even begin to start listing all the names. People that have helped me out in one area or another. And I've also been able to, I started an email newsletter it's got over 1,000 subscribers, and I have people email me for help. I don't give out advice, but I do have, with this community, I have links that I can share to people, books I can recommend. And so I now feel like, you know, in a small way, I'm changing other people's lives for the better. So that's really my story. And I don't see that story ending anytime soon. You know, I did go through cancer. That was one area that had a profound impact on my life. And you know, having become public with my weight loss, I had a network of people online that really helped me out, as well as the support that I got from my family and my friends offline.
Yeah, and you had a lot of people that I wasn't familiar with that helped you along the way, and a lot of the guys weren't low carb. But you say, "Hey, look, I want to run. Who's going to help me with the running? Who's going to help me with weightlifting?" And so, being humble in that, and saying, "Okay, I don't have all the answers. Let me figure it out." And then once you learn stuff, you if you want to do a shout out to anyone, you're more than welcome to do that. Then you share it with other people. Here's what I'm doing. I see you running. I see all the stuff you're doing. I'm like, man, you're lifting. I'm jealous of you, man. It's tough. I'm like, dang, this guy's strong. I mean, you're crushing it, but you're in there, you get your bell and you know, dumbbells and all that stuff. And I'm seeing Vic pumping iron and doing his thing. And it's so awesome that you guys are just an inspiration to people, you know, and I see you know, I think you're a diplomat and you handle things very well. You know, I maybe I can learn a few things from you too, but you know, I think it's so great that you're reaching back to the community and trying to help people. And you know, it's funny because I see it all. I just saw yesterday some guy who's an anti-low carb guy, and he's like, they're all zealots. I was like, I haven't met a zealot yet. That I haven't met anyone that I go, this person's a zealot. Maybe it's because I'm a zealot. Maybe that's why, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I've been accused of being a zealot more than once, and there's people that are not happy when they see, when they see people succeeding, and it goes against what they might have learned in medical school, or what they believe. For me, you just mentioned something very important about how you can draw knowledge, information, and help from a variety of people, and you don't have to agree with somebody in every aspect in order to gain something positive from the interaction or the relationship that you might have. So, I might disagree with you on something, and you could still help change my life. So that's what I take out of it. I try very hard not to write people off just because I disagree with them on some issue or some aspect.
Yeah, I think that we all have that in common. You say, okay, let me learn what I can, and say, let me take that aspect of training, because there's guys that may not, may not agree on much of many things, but I think it's when you start saying, hey, they're trying to do the best they can, they're trying to help people. Now, sure, some people are out there just to make a buck and to take advantage of people, I think, but I think those people they flame out like a shooting star and they're gone, right? There's a lot of people who stand the test of time because they really care, and I see that in you guys. So it's so great to have you share this with me, to have you guys on, because it's really, like, we could talk the science, we could talk, there's a lot we can discuss that is esoteric, that isn't going to reach people, but your stories are dramatic and amazing. Vic, I mean, you go through all your life, and then all of a sudden you make changes, and your friends were making fun of you before, then you start losing weight. They're like, wait a minute, what are you doing? And being able to, and that's what I've learned in life. You have to be able to stand the test of being called a quack or out of line. Now we see the guidelines are changing. Things are changing because we're seeing outcomes, right? And I think the big one too, and I think both of you have touched on that, is the mental health aspects of this stuff, that, having a better focus, maybe being a better husband or partner or whatever. Would you guys like to speak to that?
Yeah, it's crazy, and I tweeted about this just the other day, actually, and say, like, it's crazy to think that, I mean, my immediate circle of close friends, they've accepted who I've become and who I am, and they've backed off, and they won't, I mean, the few that would actually, them too, they were the type that would say, come on, just have one bite, and what's the big deal? And you can still have some of this and still have some of that. And it would frustrate me at the beginning, and but then eventually, after a certain time, they all realized that I'm not turning back, and this is who I am, and they started respecting that. But then you have a pool of other people that they just don't seem to want to back off, right? They just want to keep on harping, and they keep challenging you. And my tweet was something to the effect of saying that, you know what, I'm 2 months short of starting year 6, and I'm still being challenged by the same people that, you know what, this is a fad, or this doesn't work, and blah, blah, blah. And it's mind-boggling, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. And I said, I don't think it'll be any different in year 10, because I know I'm going to hit year 10 and year whatever it may be, because I'm not turning back, right? So I've been asked a question that says, so how do you know what you're saying is so right? And I get accused of being a zealot all the time as well. So I go, it's very simple. They say, how do you know that there isn't the other camp that's right, and it's your camp that's the right one? Well, I go, I'm a man of logic. I'm a man of, looking at and measuring different approaches in different ways. But one truth that I know that I can't deny is the results of my blood tests. So don't question me of why, well, maybe what the camp that I'm following, are they wrong? Okay, because my blood tests and my metabolic health say otherwise. So that can't be denied. So how do you keep challenging me that I've reversed my metabolic health? I'm in good shape. And are we invincible? Absolutely not. But we're doing the best to be in the best shape possible, and we're feeling great, and we have, good blood test results and all that. So how can I say that they're not right in saying that it's okay to have this many eggs a week and it's not going to bite you and you're going to be okay? So this is what I answer them, and so they back off when I say that, but they won't, but some of them won't completely back off. They'll keep coming at you, but that's okay. I got big shoulders. I can handle it.
Yeah, and I think saying, "Hey, this is what works for me. Do it." If you find something that works for you better, do it. Go for it. I think most of us feel that way. Hey, if you're vegan and it works for you and your life's good and you're happy, it's just, I look at it the same way as religions. Like, I may believe what I believe and you may think I'm crazy, but if it works for me, let me do what I want to do. And, lifestyle, exercise, activity, all those things. And I see what you and Chris are doing. And that's why, Chris, do you want to speak to that same thing?
Yeah, I think for one thing, as Vic alluded to, and made great points, it's really hard to logically argue with success. And I know what I was like 7 years ago. I weighed 278 pounds. I was out of shape. Walking up a flight of stairs put me out of breath. I wasn't in very good health, and things were probably going to get worse if I didn't make a big change. I made a bunch of changes, and the results have been outstanding. Down 80 pounds, literally the strongest that I've ever been in my life. And in terms of cardiovascular fitness, 13 miles, which I ran last month, is the furthest I've ever run in my life. I was probably I was able to run faster when I was a senior in high school, but I am in the best cardiovascular condition that I've been in probably 30 something years. So if you are going to criticize what I've done in either diet or exercise, you need to give me a better alternative. And if you do, I'm all ears. I'm willing to listen. If you can tell me how I can lift weights better or how I can improve my diet even further than I have, I listen, and I would embrace the opportunity to improve even further. I've had the opportunity in this space to interview a whole bunch of doctors, dietitians, very, very accomplished runners, including some Olympians. And I try to get something from every conversation that I have. And whenever I get to talk to some of these people, I ask them, what are some of the stumbling blocks? What are some of the recommendations you might have for an average person like me? And I try to learn. One of the questions that I asked one time was of Nick Norowitz, who a lot of people in this space know, talking about making personal changes that will benefit you and doing like N = 1 experiments. And Nick gave me some advice, and Nick is like probably literally half my age, and he probably knows way more than I ever will. But the one thing he said to me was, take notes, be very observant, make changes one at a time, experiment, do some trial and error, and look at the actual results. And I kind of realized that that's something that I already had begun to do. And it just made me realize that is a procedure which a lot of people in the established medical community don't believe in. They want to quote a study, and they want to try to prescribe one size fits all advice, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be working for the masses. So I have an open mind. But I don't make changes lightly. I think them out. I try to be logical, and then I incorporate things and see what works. And so far, as Vic just said a few minutes ago, the changes that we've made have had results, and results speak louder than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you've done a good job of that. And Carla had a couple questions for you as far as your cancer diagnosis, and do you think low carb and keto played a role in your recovery?
Well, the timeline for me was I had gotten down to a healthy body weight for the first time in 40 years in July of 2018. And it was about 3 months later that I got diagnosed with cancer. It was found in my neck and in my head. And it had a relatively good prognosis. I needed chemo and radiation. I think that the diet that I incorporated was probably, number one, it had gotten me into good shape. So I dealt with the chemo and the radiation better than I think a lot of people did. And I was already in good physical shape. So even though it kind of beat the heck out of me. I recovered quickly from it. I tried my best to maintain my diet. I tried my best to maintain my low carb diet throughout the treatments. It was difficult at times. I did lose more weight than I wanted to during the treatment. But I think that I think I was in the best shape medically and physically that I had been in a long time when I started the treatments. So and I am a believer big time in the harms of sugar. I used to, who's to say? I think that there's a lot of reason to believe that I would have suffered more damage if I had still been eating sugar the way that I used to. I was a real abuser of sugar, and furthermore, I'll just point out one thing I definitely noticed. My dental health improved dramatically when I went on a low carb diet. My dentist, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's beyond discussion. I used to have issues that going in for a cleaning was a brutal thing for me, and no longer. I don't have any dental issues whatsoever. And they told me when I had the radiation, which was going into my neck basically, but through my mouth and my teeth, that they expected I was going to have some significant dental problems as a result of the treatment, and I had none. The reason for that is that the radiation messes with your saliva production, and having low saliva production is very harmful for your teeth, particularly if you're eating a lot of things that are damaging like sugar. So overall, yeah, I'm 100% believer in the fact that the diet helped me. I followed my oncologist's recommendations to a T. So I did not do low carb as some alternative to cancer treatment, just to be completely clear.
Yeah, I think that's really important to say, is that's adjunctive to standard care.
Absolutely. And I got advice from people telling me not to do chemo and telling me to just do this or that, and a whole variety of things from low carb to other things. Everybody has a cure. I went the crazy route and trusted my doctors on that one.
Great. Yeah. And both your spirit and the other thing, Chris, is your spirit of coming back. I remember seeing you I didn't know who you were. I saw you posting you have your IVs in and you're going through the treatments, and then all of a sudden you're saying, I'm going to try to do 4 push-ups today. And how you built your body back to be a specimen now, the stuff you're doing. And also I just wanted, while we're talking about this, I want to do a shout out. I mean, right before we came on, I got a text from one of my patients. She goes, "Hey doc, how are you?" Good. She started with me diabetic, out of shape, struggling, really struggling. We're trying to figure out her nutrition, and Brady Holmer and a few other people. I'm saying, hey, I have a low carb person. We're trying to get her endurance up and all that. She just ran the New York City Marathon, right?
Oh, wow.
Just did it, man. And it's wow, going from the couch to barely being able to do stuff with joints hurting and all that. And she just what an awesome thing to be a part of that is. And all of you contributors said, here's what I would do. Here's how I would train. And to help someone. That's what's so awesome about the community. I love it.
One little thing about that, you talk about people like Brady Holmer, who has helped me personally, and he wrote a plan for me to run my 5K last year, and then he consulted with me for over an hour in preparation for my half marathon. It's kind of amazing that like you said, the community. There's people that I'm not a runner compared to people like that. I go out and I run. Same thing with lifting. I mean, there's people, I'm strong for me, but there's people that can lift literally twice as much as I can lift, and they're willing to help and advise and give some of their time to helping me do what I do better. So I'm just grateful that there's so many people out there that are willing to help and not act like they're above me or these other people that are trying to improve themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point, because it's one thing to be critical and nasty, and one thing is, hey, have you ever thought about trying it this way, right? Saying, hey, here's how I live. Maybe you try it this way and see if that works for you. If it doesn't, do another route. You know, some people are going to do Ben Bakiko's type workouts. Some are going to be Ted Naiman. That's one thing we learn in the podcast. There's such a variety. And, you know, one of the people we interviewed before is really helping one of my patients with a nutritional plan that's working for her. It's like, cool, like it's working for you. So, you know, I think it's really important to you know, the criticism, like everyone's on their journey. Like, you know, it's kind of like what Tro was saying when he was exercising and people were making fun of obese people at the gym. They're in the gym. They're trying to make themselves better. Support them. Don't make fun of them. Like, no one should be self-conscious or feel bad about it. And, you know, no matter where they are in their journey, it's just so frustrating that you know, people are judging people who may be at a bigger, a more difficult starting point, but they're still on their journey and trying to get better.
I couldn't agree more. I have one thing I want to just bring up, if it's okay. I'm looking forward to this coming January, when I get the opportunity to meet Vic for the first time in Boca. And I just want to put that out there, that if anybody else wants to come to Boca, to the Low Carb USA conference, are you going to be there, Brian?
No.
Okay.
I got stuff going.
I've had the opportunity to meet you, Brian, on several occasions at these Low Carb USA conferences, and I look forward to seeing you again. But I'm really looking forward to meeting Vic and a bunch of other people. And I just want to put it out there that it's not too late to sign up for the conference and be in Boca on January 13th through 15th, because I know that Vic and I would both be thrilled to meet anybody that decides to sign on. Low Carb USA website is where you find that information. And again, Vic, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person after having the opportunity to speak with you on a couple of Zoom calls and interact on Twitter.
Yeah, same here, right back at you. It's I'm really, really looking forward to it, and counting down the days to it. I'm not gonna, you know, I've been needling Brian a little bit on Twitter with a little couple of pokes at him on Twitter and stuff, but you know, it would have been so great, you know, but like you wrote back, one day it's going to happen, and we got to be respectful of, I'm sure, you know, what Brian goes to so many of these conferences, like we got to respect his time for sure. And
no, I may try to twist Doug's arm and sneak in there and say hi to everyone. I would love to do that if I can, you know, work it out. Tro and I are keeping ourselves fairly busy trying to figure out life and, you know, helping to as many people as we can and all that. So it's been a great journey, you know, but you know, to see you guys and what you're accomplishing is so awesome. And, you know, it's just amazing, an amazing community. And I would tell everyone too, if you can have a chance to go, because you'll meet nice people and you'll say, well, what did you do? How did you deal with this? And, you know, and it's such a great conference. So maybe I can finagle a day or two and sneak out there, and I'll see if I can work something out. But
that would be awesome.
That would be
crazy stuff.
Surprises of all surprises.
No, heck, if I say it now, then won't be a surprise, but we'll see. Well, last time I went to Boca, I didn't even have a hotel room. I had to crash on Tro's. Well, Tro and I had to share a room for a night. That was fun. So yeah, I think it's just amazing what you guys are all accomplishing, and Patreon supporters would greatly appreciate you being here. If you have any questions that are popping up in your head, please ask, and we'll get to those for sure. But and you two, like, I gave you a whole 4 minutes to see if you wanted to join me, so that's awesome that you could just do that, because you know Tro was just going to cancel. I go, man, it would be cool if we could just chit chat, talk about life and, you know, what matters and all that. And I think, you know, one thing that has really impressed me, and one thing that's been my focus is the effects of stress on metabolic health. And I think just sticking with something. I mean, when they say that you're too dogmatic or something that you can't stick with, you guys have tested shown the test of time. Brian Wiley, look at his story. I mean, there's so many great people out there that we, you know, just have to get these stories out and let people be encouraged and you know, have the courage to take a stand and try it for themselves and see what happens.
No doubt. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I honestly personally went through enough years of struggling to find my way that I became convinced, like I think a lot of people do, that this was just something I wasn't going to figure out in this lifetime. And that really, it beats you down. It makes you feel, you know, I wasn't hopeless about life, but I had given up hope on figuring out how to get really healthy again, and that I was just kind of accepting something that was not as good as it should have been. And once you get that glimmer of hope, and you know that there's a way to do it, then it just becomes a pursuit. And now that's the way I treat everything that I want to accomplish. It's like, I don't know how to do this right now, but there's somebody who does. And it's not that hard to find that person if you look hard enough and you focus on it. And I mean, I've talked to you, Brian, on a number of occasions, both in person and online, or Zoom. Vic, I've talked to you about different aspects of satiety and hunger, and how to do certain things better. And I think these are things I want to continue doing, because it's not, this is just a journey that's going to take the rest of my life. This was not a pursuit to get to a certain body weight and figure that it's over. It's this is all fun stuff now, stuff that I just want to get better at.
Yeah, and the other thing that people don't appreciate enough, I think, and I'd love to have you speak to this also, Vic, is Chris, I see you with your daughter and your wife, you're running together, you're active, you're doing things, so you're impacting your family, and they're going to impact their friends, and so it's kind of one of these positive, where you're accomplishing things together, and you build that. Like, these are things your daughter will never forget. When you're old and decrepit, she'll go, I remember running with my dad through the forest. Those kind of things are super cool, instead of sitting there watching TV all night.
Yeah, 100%. It just it's all part of it. It comes down to quality of life, right? And how much it brings to you, not only to yourself, but to your loved ones and to your family, and to being able to, instead of coming home and just having absolutely no energy and just sitting on the couch and not doing anything, as opposed to, like you mentioned, like I see Chris all the time, doing tremendous runs with his wife. So that must be so gratifying, being able to go out on a run like that, and it's doing something together with your spouse, or being able to play with your kids, or doing sports with your kids. I mean, my son has challenged me. He's gone recently into which I haven't given it a try yet. He's become a fanatic on pickleball, the new craze of pickleball. And he goes, Dad, next summer there, you're coming on the court for pickleball, right? So, yeah, for sure. Would I have ever been able to dream saying, okay, I'll come play pickleball with you? Impossible. So these are going to be moments that are going to be cherished, and it's a quality of life, and it's life changing. It's amazing.
And not only that, Vic, I remember when you were saying, look, I'm wearing my son's shirt today. That's so awesome. Remember, like, I couldn't fit in this, like, one arm in this thing before, and you go, hey, I'm gonna steal my son's shirt. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. I would. He's. You know what? I must say he influenced me. He was a big factor of. He was the first one to say, Dad, you should look into this keto stuff and what have you. And that's how I took off. And then in reverse, it's like I've kind of influenced him now. And I must say, you know what? I mean, he's not perfect, and can't say by any means that he's living a ketogenic or lifestyle, but he does watch it. I can probably, at most times he goes low carb, and I'll say it out. And my son does, he acknowledges that he struggles at times with anxiety levels, and he's recognized, and he's told me, he says, Dad, I realize that when I'm eating low carb, when I'm eating clean. Now, is it anecdotal? Is it a N equals 1? Because, before people jump all over us, he sees a big difference when he's going low carb, that his anxiety levels are much lower. So,
well, I just to step in, it's not anecdotal, because we see it all the time. As a matter of fact, you go back, I love it, because I'm arrogant about it now, but listen to episode number 10 and number 13, talking about food addiction, anxiety, addiction. And now we have Chris Palmer, Georgia Ede. We have so many people coming out with great information, and we're seeing it. We're seeing people's mood get better. If you're not on edge all the time, and you're calm. And, you know, like I started to say, I really do. The more I'm around, I think stress is the biggest killer we have. Like people under high stress where they can't sleep, they're drinking too much, you know, 75 to 90% of office visits based on a Harvard study are stress related. So if your brain isn't right and you're stressed, so Brain Energy is coming out with Chris, his book is coming out. I'm getting it. Hopefully I was supposed to get it today, but I think it's not coming till Monday.
I
Amazon, what's
believe,
wrong with you guys?
yeah, because I've pre-ordered it. I believe it's the 15th. The release is on the 15th, I believe. Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, if we can get mental health right, I think everything else falls in line. It's very critical. Like, and it's fun because we just had this talk with Dr. Unwin, both Dr. Unwins, and, you know, is really saying, you know, is it the physiologic part of it? Is it the stress part of it? And it all goes together. And like you're saying, I have patients who are doing great. They go through a stressful event, or they have a party and they start eating processed foods and sugar, and then boom, they're off the rails and their moods are messed up. And so it's a good thing sometimes, because then you feel like, oh my gosh, I felt so good before. That's why I love when people journal, and when they're doing well, they feel great. And when they go off the wagon, they feel terrible. And they feel terrible about themselves a lot of times because they let themselves down because they're trying to get to their certain goals, and then they filled the hole in a little bit. Chris, you have something to say?
No, I'm just absorbing it all. No, it's I agree with you completely.
Yeah, and so I think those things are, if you're, I see it all the time. As a matter of fact, you know, some of the addiction specialists have talked about it as with regard to like getting along better with people and not being on edge as much. Have you guys noticed stuff like that in your temperament with dietary and lifestyle change, that you've chilled out a little bit on certain things, or you don't get as annoyed by people or anything like that?
Well, for me, it's hard to separate the reasons behind the improvement, but for me, 100%. Overall, you lose 80 pounds, you feel better about yourself every single day. You're in better shape. Every aspect of that, your fitness is better, and then you know, you start thinking about, and you have time to, like you talk about stress and sleep. You know, paying attention to those things is a lot easier when all the other things are taken care of. So it really is like you know, a cascade of events, dominoes falling one after another. You know, when things are going bad, you know, something goes bad in your work, it spills over to another area of your life. But the same happens when you start to get everything in order and working well. So absolutely. And by the way, you know, my diet used to cause, I used to have a breathing problem for 40 plus years that mysteriously went away about 3 weeks into my low carb diet, and has not returned. 4.5 years later, I saw 3 doctors about that. But I used to have migraine headaches multiple times a month. That's just a non-occurrence anymore. And how can that not make your life better from you know, a mental health aspect when you're not dealing with nonsense like that?
Well, you know, and you brought it up earlier. I wanted to comment on that too. The dental health. You know, there's definitely correlation. We see people with poor oral health have way more cardiac events. So is it because bacteria are going to the heart and you get heart inflammation, things like that, or is it because all the sugar is causing the high insulin, you know, all this metabolic disease stuff? But either way, the sugar is a bad thing. And so my dentist too said that he was looking back at my old x-rays. He goes, oh my gosh, everything's totally different since you went low carb. And he said, yeah, and this is a direct quote. He said, you low carb guys would put us out of business. He said the only thing that's kept us in business with the low carb community is if they're having to wear an N95 mask, like nurses and doctors in the hospitals. It caused, you know, they were getting more acidic teeth damage. But he said the low carb people, he said, they come in and they do their cleaning and we don't see them again. You know, he said, but luckily there's a lot of people eating terrible food that we make money off them. Is that crazy?
Yeah, the crazy thing is, it's like so many people, it's gone to a point where they say they have, you know, they're struggling with this or they're struggling with that. And I say, well, cut back on the carbs, cut back on the sugar. And they say, well, your answer to everything is cut back on, you know, on the carbs. And well, I say, you know, they say you think that, you know, it cures everything. Well, I said, I never said it cures everything, but let me tell you, there's a hell of a long list that you could maybe not cure everything, but you're going to see that you're going to have improvements on. And I mean, we'll take, you know, just for example, and to those who have complied and tried it, they do see the difference. Okay, migraines. If you're somebody who suffers from migraines, am I saying that going keto is going to cure your migraines? I don't know to what level that it will, but you certainly do see a difference that if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, your migraines are 8, 9, you might very well be able to pull it down to a 4 or 5. And I think it's been proven. I think it's been shown. Maybe for some people it doesn't, but and so many other things like this that, you know, that you will at least see a difference. You may not cure it, you may not completely get rid of it, but you are, you know, with less inflammation. I myself used to be constantly, you know, aches and pains and sores, and you know, I don't want to put the whammy on myself, but I don't know when's the last time I experienced that ever since going low carb. Now they're going to say, well, yeah, no wonder you lost 100 pounds. So for sure, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a legit point that if you're carrying 100 pounds less, you know, it's that much less stress on your body. But I've lost 70 in the past and the aches and pains did not go away. So the inflammation was still there. So there's my answer to that.
Yeah, people confuse metabolic health with weight, and that's a big issue. It's like if you're metabolically healthier, and you went through a big injury when you broke your arm, right? And had to come back from that too. I mean, you had, you know, some people get an injury like that and they're going to gain 80 pounds right back because they go, forget it. You know, like, I mean, I had a guy, he was doing great and he needed a knee replacement. And, you know, they said, oh, you have to lose another 80 pounds or something. He said, forget it. And he just went off the rails and ate everything and got disastrous, right? So, you know, some of that, you get an injury, you get a life event, and it's hard to get back on track. And you two have been experts at staying on track also, right? And I see what you're making, Vic, and that's not restricted. I'm like, oh man, Vic's making good. So I wish I was at Vic's house tonight for dinner. You know, I mean, when you make the best of it and you get the right mindset where you go, this is just what I do, and it's not a sacrifice anymore.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like I tell people, it's kind of like a bank account. Okay, the more you invest into it, the more dividends you're gonna get. So invest in how much, you know, knowledge you're gonna put into it, or how much of a, you know, how well you're gonna stay engaged in it. And the more you educate yourself and the more you're willing to put in a little bit of work, whether it's nutritionally or whether it's exercise, the more you work at it, the better payoff you're going to have, the better dividends you're going to get. That's for sure. I'm a firm believer in that.
I agree 100% with that, Vic. The investment aspect and the fact that this is a journey, not a destination. The fact that it just becomes part of your lifestyle. And when you talked before about, you mentioned that you had lost weight previously without the medical benefits. I also got myself down to the same weight, which was about 205 pounds. This was about 12 years ago. And I did it through absolute white knuckle willpower, calorie restriction, and I lost the weight. I also lost a lot of strength. I was tired. I was cold. And I was actually miserable. And I did not, my breathing problem did not go away that time. Because I don't think I was addressing the problem other than, you know, physically I was forcing my body to shed body weight. So I was effectively starving myself. But that's something that, sorry about that. That's something that we have to understand.
Yeah, and we've all done that, and we've all watched The Biggest Losers where they lose all the weight and then they gain it all back because they're losing such a fast rate that they lose muscle mass and their visceral fat doesn't change and their body wants to hold on to it. We've all experienced that. I talk about that with my wrestling and football, days. I was gaining and losing 40 pounds at a time, between seasons, and that absolutely has a long lasting effect. So you say, how do I lose weight with maintaining muscle mass, right? How do I lose visceral fat, really? Even if you're 205 now compared to how you were then, I see your physique and I go, man, dude, you got a lot of muscle mass. And people just get so caught up that when they're putting on muscle. There was a question too about osteopenia with a low carb diet. I personally never seen it. I see people when they're doing low carb diet and they're working out. I have 3 people who reversed osteoporosis in my practice. 1 male, 2 females doing benzo workout on a low carb diet, reversing it without taking drugs. And I was amazed. I couldn't believe it. And so anyways, it does happen, but putting the stress on the muscles is really a huge thing, because the biggest travesty, I think, for the low carb community was when I first came in, everyone said diet, exercise doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all about diet. That's all that matters, which is, you can accomplish a lot. Like someone just posted that today. It says something to the effect that if you if you want to look good in your clothes, it's all about diet. If you want to look good without your clothes, it's about exercise. And I think that's a good point of saying you don't want to just lose muscle mass and fat and be totally flabby and weak. Doing what you're doing, this is the sustainability part of it. The people who exercise do better in the long run. We have data on cortisol benefits, insulin benefits, longevity benefits, all these things. And so, part of it's not being stressed, intense, and all these things that we're talking about, it all kind of goes together. One of the greatest moments of my life was sitting with Ben Bickman talking about the 5 things that matter, and they go, okay, I got to change some things. And I had to change things with my work life and, home life and stress and, those kind of things, and getting enough sleep. And there's so many things that we can, that we just don't see. And I have the benefit of looking at continuous glucose monitors all the time and seeing what happened. Like yesterday, I have a guy, I go, what happened? Your sugars are crazy. Did you change your CGM, your continuous glucose monitor? He goes, no, I had a really stressful week at work and I had this and he didn't change his diet at all. But the stress, you can see the insulin, the sugars go up and the cortisol, it gets messed up and all that stuff. So yeah, if we have to look at the big picture, and that's why it's about the whole lifestyle, not just about what you're eating.
Just touching on one point that you mentioned, and that's about the diet and its relation to weight loss. I agree with you that it's definitely not a good idea to discourage people from exercising. And from my perspective, it's just important to let people know that you can lose weight and body fat independent of exercise, and that the exercise benefits are so much beyond anything to do with weight. And I think you made that point. It's just a lot of burden to put on exercise to fix a bad diet. So and it's almost impossible to do for most people. So as long as you keep those two things separate, for me, the problem with thinking that exercise is going to cure your obesity is that if it doesn't work, you develop a really hate relationship with exercise because it let you down. And the beauty is when you get your diet under control and you begin to exercise because you love it, because exercise brings you pleasure and it makes your life better. And that's the way that I've been able to get to, which I never was able to do before. So when I get my running shoes on, I'm going out to relieve the stress that you talk about. I'm going out to give my body a charge and to come back, better than when I left. Not to see if I can, burn off 3,000 calories so that I can go eat another bag of donuts.
Exactly. And that's we've all been that. It's like, oh, I worked out today, so I can have an extra cookie and I'm going to have the bread and I'll have some French fries. And you realize that when you look at the calories, it's the hormonal aspects of it. And that's where you start getting into trouble, because you say, oh, I can do this now. I could eat at 10 at night because I worked out this morning for 20 minutes or something, And so, and looking at the people who are successful and how they're just sustaining it. You guys have sustained what you're doing. And along those notes, since we're coming up on time and it makes me upset, but how do we survive the holidays? You guys are pros and experts now. This is the time of season that's kryptonite for most people. So do you guys have any tips of what you do when you're going to the family gathering? What are your tricks of the trade that you do to get through the holidays?
Go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess there's several different approaches, all depending on the individual. One of the tips that I like to give is, it may be cliche, but prioritize on protein, right? So if you're going to go to the place and there's a whole spread put out there, make sure you can eat as much protein as you can to fill up with at the beginning, so that even if you're going to be tempted, at least you'll have a very small amount of space to have a little piece of something, right? So, but if you prioritize the protein and you're going to be so full, chances may be that you're not even going to want to have that other tempting stuff at the very end. Now, life happens; it's reality. there's a family gathering, you don't want to be deprived, or you don't want to feel left out. Now, if you're going to go with that sort of mentality, don't be shy to take your own, you know what, if you're going to bake up yourself a keto-friendly dessert, if you're not hosting, if you're going to somebody else's house, take it along with you. You just might be surprised that you might get them to try it, and they may like it, and you might influence somebody and maybe making change and starting embarking in something. So those are my two major tips. Prioritize, make sure you're full on protein, so that if you are going to embark on the desserts and what have you, you won't have very much left for it. You might have a little bite, that's fine. Life goes on, life happens. And if not, take along your own stuff that's keto friendly. Make it with a little bit of almond flour, monk fruit, erythritol, and take your own pie along with you, and share it with the others and show them what it's all about.
Awesome advice.
I agree with you there, Vic. By the way, definitely follow Vic if you're not already following him, because he gives tips like that all the time on Twitter. And you know, it's very, very valuable for somebody that's you know, still struggling to find their way. I agree with what you said. I have a set of rules that I follow. It's like 5 rules on a business card piece of paper. I've shared it a lot on from my Twitter account. The rules keep me on track. I try to avoid ever having 2 bad days in a row. So if I ever do fall off the wagon, say I'm at a party and I mess up and I didn't prioritize protein as much as I should have, as Vic mentioned, you know, you can have a bad afternoon. It's not going to make you gain 10 pounds. You know, even a really bad afternoon is only going to make you gain a couple of pounds. And if you get back on the horse the next day, you know, you're going to be okay. So that's what I do. Lately, you know, I'm pretty much, I have little missteps, but you just keep them to a short period of time and fix whatever you did wrong. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, one step at a time. And I think that's, you know, how you end up running half marathons and doing, you know, New York Marathon like my patient did. And so I think it's just staying the course. You know, that I think that's the best advice. And like you're saying, don't have 2 bad days. If you have one bad day, and don't crush yourself over the head for it. Go, okay, I had a cookie and I decided to do it. And if you can control the situation, you're that much more. If you say, hey, look, on Thanksgiving, I'm going to have some pumpkin pie that my mom makes, and you predetermine that, and you go, okay, after that, I'm back on track and doing, okay, cool. You are in control of it. What I find is when patients are out of control and they go, okay, I'm not going to have the pumpkin pie, and then they have a piece and then they go off the rails. They go, I already blew it, so I might as well just blow it for the rest of the holidays and I'll start in January again. And then you have to dig out. So I think there's so much good advice that you guys have. So when people say it's non-sustainable, it depends on your mindset. And if it's a torture for you and you hate it, but if you go, hey, I you know, like the stuff that Vic's making that's really good, like no one's being tortured by that good food, right? And the good protein. And so those are all great points you guys are making. And you know, I think I see you both just getting stronger and better and enjoying life and having fun and posting about it, and you know, and taking the arrows that come as it does. And you know, people get upset with that you think it's the only right way, but it's like, hey, that's what works for you. You guys are doing fantastic work. And so it's an inspiration. And I've seen I know a couple of people that are in our Q&A that I would love to get up here and tell their story too. Cause I don't think anything speaks more than a testimony, to hear someone going, yeah, here's where I was, here's what happened, here's where I'm at now, here's what my life's like. You know, I'm doing better than I was 10 years ago. You guys are just an example of that. And all the good stuff that happens is a side effect. And it's funny, like what Vic is saying, because patients will ask me, do you think if going low carb will help with this or this? And I go, oh gosh, I feel like a snake oil salesman, because yes, it does help with these things. And I've seen it. I've seen people's acne clear up, and their joint pains and their back pain and their depression go away, and their anxiety. And it's like, oh gosh. And I really do think it was extremely controversial when Tro and I were talking about this on episode 10 and 13, because we were seeing it in our practice and we knew what we were seeing, but we couldn't give causality necessarily. But we're like, our patients are joking with us and they're happy and they're not like miserable every time they come in, and they're happier in their relationships, and maybe their sex life is better, all these kind of things that we were saying, why are we seeing this? Why is this happening with carnivore diet or low carb or intermittent fasting? And, really, I think for each of us, it's just figuring out what works for us and what doesn't work, and just tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it until we figure it out, and not just say this doesn't work and give up. Yeah. So guys, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you joining me with no notice at all, and it sounds like, gosh, there's so many good people. Now I'm seeing other people are going to be at Boca too. Everyone says we'll see you in Boca. So, all right, I may have to make some schedule changes, see what I can work out. But yeah, I would love to meet up with you guys there in Boca. So anyways,
That would be awesome.
do you guys have any last words of wisdom for us on the way out?
Yeah, you know what, this was a lot of fun. This was like really a nice surprise, just like you said, out of nowhere, non-expected, and having the opportunity to speak with Chris and yourself, Brian, and you know what, for what it's worth, you talk about giving shout outs, and I'll give a shout out. The biggest shout out I can give is to the Low Carb MD podcast, okay, which as far as I'm concerned, I don't know quite where my journey would be had I not come across the Low Carb MD podcast, okay? Yourself and Tro, the work you've done with this podcast, the amount of education you've given us, it's very much appreciated. I think we're all better because of this podcast. I think it's invaluable information, and it's a lot of work. I could just imagine the work that goes behind this and your time. Really got to thank you guys for all the work you do. So that's a shout out that I really got to do. And Chris, you know what? It's been one of the benefits that I think I've gotten to know you a little bit because of the Low Carb MD podcast, and through Twitter and via Twitter as well. Chris has been instrumental in my journey, particularly the exercise that I've gotten into this past year. A lot of it was inspired by Chris, watching him post and work. And I'll give one more shout out. It was, there's too many to name, but particularly Chris and our friend Bob Collins as well, which is better known as Lion Fit for Life is his handle on Twitter. These two, man, they really got me into the exercise. Okay, it's like watching them and so inspiring. So thank you, gentlemen. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, I would love to drag him on. He's got a great story, and he's been an inspiration to me also.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that, Vic. I very much appreciate everything I've learned from you. You've been very generous and have shared a lot of really good stuff with me over the last couple of years. And that point about low carb MD, I echo that 100%. I've listened to all 248 episodes, many of them several times, and I can remember the first day that I found that. I think I listened to like 7 episodes on one single road trip, back to back to back to back. And now there's not a week that goes by. I get direct messages from people all the time on Twitter who are desperate for help, and they tell me their story. People that I don't even know who they are. I don't even know who they are on Twitter. It's the first time I've ever seen them, and they ask for help, and they talk about specific things in their challenge and their struggle. And I simply, more than half the time, I simply think for 5 minutes and find a link to a specific low carb MD episode and share it with them and say, I think this might help you. Let me know if you have any questions. That's it. So that's how valuable it has been to me, and how it just goes and ripples on to other people. And I've gotten a lot of real positive feedback just from doing that very simple thing.
Brian, can I just, if I may, can I allow me to put in one more plug?
No, of course.
I know you had Tracy McBeath on the other day on Life's Best Medicine, but I'm going to put the plug out there again, just in case those who didn't catch it. It actually got launched yesterday because it's the 12th of November in Melbourne as we speak. So Men's Life Matters series is going to be an awesome event to watch for those who don't know about it. It's an amazing lineup of it's going to be spread over 3 days of amazing speeches by so many. Brian included is a presenter in there, and for those who are interested, you can sign up for free at lowcarblifestylehub.com, and you can either watch it for free as per day, or it is available for purchase for those who want to buy it and keep it to watch it at their own pace. So I think it's something really worthwhile. There's a lot of amazing speakers going on there, and just wanted to give that a plug.
Yeah, I'll say the same. It was an honor that she reached out to me, and you know, such a great line. I couldn't believe it. All the speakers she got, you know, Ben Bickman being one of them, and Prof Noakes, and there's so many great people. We went through the list on the podcast. As a matter of fact, on Low Carb MD, you guys can go back and listen to that. And I would tell guys, it's so important. Like, you want to be the leader in your family. You want to get your family healthy. You want to be a better father, husband, you know, employee, whatever you want to be, son. It will make a difference. So many people have given up hope, and that's been my thing, is like, never give up hope, and just, you know, find what works for you. If it's not low carb, figure it out, you know, make changes, you know, get out there and put on those gym shoes and go out that first time, and, you know, go for that little walk, you know, walk for 10 steps if that's where you start. Because we all have a different journey, and you know, and as we progress, things may change, and you may eat more carbs as you go along, and you may eat less carbs as you go along. It's just kind of really what your goals are and what matters. And to be able to do things like you're doing is, you know, go for hikes and not be the last person, and, you know, be able to play pickleball if you want to. Yeah, heck, I can play pickleball. Like 2 years ago, you couldn't think about that, you know. And so it's just so great to see people getting their lives back, and people wonder what the inspiration is behind the podcast. I can guarantee you it's not for money, because, you know, Tro and I think we just barely scraped through. We don't have any sponsors here. I was smart enough to have Chris hook me up with Simply Snacking for Life's Best Medicine, and so that keeps me rolling over there. But yeah, I think it's just, you know, there's a lot of good people in the community that are willing to help and get the word out, and you know, I'll do one last shout out to Tro. He's been immensely, you know, he's such a great guy, and, you know, we kid each other, and, you know, people didn't know how to take us at first because we rib each other and have a good time, but man, it's like iron sharpens iron. So true. I've been a good influence in his life. He's been a good in mine, and taught me a lot about direct primary care, helped me escape from the system. And you know, he's a firebrand, as Dr. Unwood would say, that he's not going to back down. And we need people in the fight. You know, Tro's in the fight. He's going to stand up. He'll do it in the New York style. And so you know, I think it's really important that people know that he's doing a lot of great stuff. His heart, his education, what he does, and what he's accomplished in life, and, you know, being 350 pounds himself, and walking the walk, and you know, just he cares about people. He gets angry because he sees the poor advice, and the how people are treated and mocked and made fun of, and he knows what it's like. And so, you know, that's why I was so fortunate to pick him for my co-host here. And, you know, I knew he had rough edges to start, but man, he's turning into a diamond for sure. And he's really, I mean, he's got a nationwide program where he's helping people and just drawing in docs, and, you know, maybe I'll work with him a little bit at some point. But anyways, everyone, you know, this is the dangerous, difficult time of the year. There's so much wisdom here. These two guys joined me at the last second, you know, to make this a great podcast, and it's such a blessing to have the Patreon supporters, and you two have been huge supporters from day one of our podcast, so we greatly appreciate you. And everyone, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and, you know, just make yourself better, and you know, give people a little bit of grace around you. You know, a lot of us are arguing and fighting and having troubles. Like, you know, let's kind of make amends, get together with your family for the holidays, and bring up some good low carb food, and, you know, let bygones be bygones at some point, and, you know, let's just make the world a better place. So thank you all. Thanks for your stories, and for your support.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Take care.